Years ago, I was sitting by the fire with a monk. He asked me, "Do you believe in the people who proclaim to love one another till death do us part?" I said yes. Because there's an end to look forward to. "But what if death doesn't do you part?" he asked. I looked at him. There was a moment of silence. He then continued by sharing a story. The story happened a long, long time ago. Shinojo is the young, handsome, and intelligent future lord of his house. Despite his youth, he is one of the best military commanders and warriors in the land. Not only is he well trained in the ways of the sword, but also as a scholar. People believe he will, without any doubt, elevate the military, political, and financial status of House Ogiwara, along with the region they rule over. One day he and his father, Lord Ogiwara, leave their estate for an official visit with House Seigaki, a noble family in a distant region. While there, Lord Seigaki introduces his daughter, Osuyu, to the Ogiwaras. Shinojo, immediately captivated by her beauty, grace, and radiance, feels as if his heart has stopped beating. Time has ceased flowing. And everything in this world has faded into the imperceptible mist. Apparently, Shinojo is not the only one who finds her spellbinding. Many young nobles and warriors across the land have expressed their desire for her, but none has impressed Osuyu. She instantly recognizes the look in Shinojo's eyes, indicating he too has fallen for her. However, she is by no means as intoxicated by him as he is to her. Nevertheless, she finds him vaguely intriguing. Fortunately for Shinojo, their official visit is long. During their extended stay, she gradually discovers Shinojo is dedicated, forthright, ambitious, and resourceful. But he can also be kind, humorous, affectionate, and considerate. As time passes, her interest towards Shinojo slowly grows. And eventually they fall in love with one another. At the conclusion of their visit, Shinojo asks for his father's permission, and Lord Seigaki's blessing for his daughter's hand in marriage. Both happily agree. And with Otsuyu's acceptance to his proposal, the couple is officially engaged to be married. Just as both houses begin to discuss the details of the wedding, House Ogiwara is summoned for battle against a group of invaders threatening the distant regions in the west. Shinojo has been ordered to represent his house to fight, and he must leave immediately. Otsuyu is devastated by the news. She fears for Shinojo's safety on the battlefield. As she helps him pack for the journey, Shinojo senses her worries. He promises her his safe return, and the long, eventful life they will have together. A beautiful wedding, children, grandchildren, and eventually growing old together. Months go by, as the battles continue in the west. Eventually, Shinojo returns home victorious, but injured. He wants to visit Otsuyu immediately, but his father insists he rests and heals before meeting his future bride again. He agrees, and sends a letter to inform Otsuyu about his return and how much he misses her. Every evening, he prays for Otsuyu in front of the fire and deeply wishes to see her. One night, when sitting on the porch in front of his room, he notices a dim light appearing in the forest nearby and moving slowly towards the estate. As the light draws closer, he sees a peony lantern leading two silhouettes. Their faces hidden by the darkness. And when they are near the back doors of his home, he realizes the silhouettes belong to Otsuyu and her maid. Surprised and delighted, he rushes to greet them. Shocked, he asks if they have traveled here all by themselves. Otsuyu calmly tells him that her family doesn't know. He wonders how did they manage to do so, given the journey takes weeks. We received your message, she says, and wanted to visit. Thrilled, he invites them into his room and asks them to wait while he gathers food and water for them. As he leaves, Otsuyu stops him. Meanwhile, the maid extinguishes all the light in the room except for the peony lantern. She then sits quietly at the corner, far from the couple. Otsuyu begins to loosen her kimono, and Shinojo is shocked. She has occupied his mind for every waking moment since he last saw her. He even dreams of her every night. But this is beyond anything he has imagined for their reunion. The two are together once again. And the entire night is filled with fervor, tenderness, and elation. Moments before dawn, Shinojo is resting on his back, in awe and exhausted. He vaguely notices Otsuyu has begun dressing with the help of her maid. When they are done, her maid picks up the PEONY lantern and they begin to leave. Shinojo asks where they are going, but neither Otsuyu nor her maid reply. After dressing hastily, he catches up, and insists on accompanying them to their lodging. They finally stop. And Otsuyu tells Shinojo if he wants to see her again tomorrow night, he must not tell anyone about their visit. He tells her he wishes her to meet his parents. But she only stares at him, waiting for his answer. Unwilling to risk losing her, he agrees. Afterwards, they resume moving towards the forest, leaving him standing and watching as they disappear into the trees. Shinojo carries on with his daily duties while keeping his rendezvous with Otsuyu a secret. Every day he eagerly waits for the dim light of the PEONY lantern. In the evenings, Otsuyu and her maid emerge from the forest. And every night their liaison is filled with passion, affection, and euphoria. Months pass, as the affair continues. One morning, Lord Ogiwara introduces a monk to his family and tells them he will be performing prayers for their ancestral spirits during Obon, the festival of the dead. They are expected to join him in prayers every afternoon. For the next 3 days, Shinojo and his family join the monk in prayers. Each session always ends with lunch and ceremonial wine. On the morning of the 4th day, the monk leaves. And as dusk approaches, Shinojo again anxiously waits for the light of the PEONY lantern. He stands in front of his room to welcome them inside, as Otsuyu and her maid finally arrive at the estate. But unlike all the other nights, when they've reached the outside of his room, they refuse to enter. Otsuyu tells Shinojo, something is stopping them from going inside the house. Unless it is removed, they can never enter his room and will not return to the estate. Finished, Otsuyu and her maid begin to head back to the forest. Shinojo begs them to stay and try entering again, but they simply keep walking. Confused and furious, Shinojo spends all night searching his room. He examines every object, every drawer, and every crevice within, but discovers nothing strange. After he has destroyed his room, he moves on to the remaining estate. He searches every building and all of its rooms, the servants' quarters, the barn, the stable, and even the outhouses. After 5 days and 5 nights, he fails to find anything. And every night Otsuyu has remained absent. Distraught, Shinojo finally sits down and ponders what is he actually looking for. His eyes aimlessly drift across his home. And when he sees the Butsudan, it reminds him of the monk and the prayer ceremonies. He remembers at the end of every prayer, the monk would personally bless every member of the family by feeding them ceremonial wine from a carafe. He would pour the wine directly into everyone's mouth, and the wine always touches the tongue first. Invigorated, he runs to his father who invited the monk, and demands to know if the prayer ceremonies served a secret purpose. Lord Ogiwara tells him he knows of his nightly affair with Otsuyu. One late evening, troubled by his thoughts and restless, he took a stroll around the estate. He heard strange noises from Shinojo's room, and decided to take a peek inside. He saw him moving his body, in a repetitive, feverish, and aggressive manner. The dim light showed him embracing a nude, half-rotten corpse of a young woman. He then noticed the dim light, glowing from the small but delicate PEONY lantern. It sat at the far corner of the room, in front of the half-rotten corpse of a young maid. Shinojo, angry and in disbelief, calls his father a liar and accuses him of scheming to sever Otsuyu from his life. Lord Ogiwara explains, before his return from the battlefield, he received a letter from Lord Seigaki, stating Otsuyu has become gravely ill after she received news that Shinojo has been killed in battle. He replied by telling Lord Seigaki that Shinojo is injured, but alive, and on his way home. But it was already too late. They have found Otsuyu and her maid, drowned, inside one of the family wells. The false news was fabricated by Otsuyu's aunt in an attempt to break her engagement with Shinojo. She hoped to have Otsuyu married to a different family, for personal gain. After their bodies were discovered, she fled. But she was found and captured by Lord Seigaki's warriors. Still in disbelief, Shinojo shouts at his father and screams at him for being a deceitful coward. Lord Ogiwara explains, the young and lovely Otsuyu he knew, is dead. The one whom Shinojo spends every night with is not Otsuyu. She has become something else. And if the nightly affair continues, he will soon be dead. That's why he seeks help from the monk. And he too, has seen the two rotting corpses the first night he arrived. He has placed a protective spell on Shinojo and the family, through the sacred wine. It is now a part of him, forever. And he will be saved from whatever demons Otsuyu and her maid have become. Enraged by his father's words, Shinojo lunges towards him, determined to silence his father's lies and attempt to separate him from Otsuyu. He grabs and chokes his neck with every bit of strength he has. The old man eventually succumbs to Shinojo's grip and dies in the hands of his own son. Shinojo sees his father's corpse lying on the floor. He puts him on a futon and arranges his body so he would appear asleep. Afterwards, he steps out of his father's room and tells the servants not to disturb his father while he rests. He is filled with joy and excitement, instead of guilt and fear, because he has found the cause of his trouble. Nightfall. He orders his servants away, and prepares for Otsuyu's arrival. And once again, the dim light of the PEONY lantern emerges from the forest. He greets them with a box in his hands. Otsuyu looks inside, and sees a small knife along with a human tongue. She looks at Shinojo for a moment, then steps inside his room, along with her maid. He follows and closes the doors, smiling. Morning. The estate is filled with frenzy because they have discovered Lord Ogiwara has died. The servants rush to inform the young master of the tragedy, and they soon notice a putrid smell stemming from within while standing outside. They repeatedly call for Shinojo's attention, but only receive silence in return. Given the emergency, the head servant decides to enter without permission. He discovers Shinojo clinging to a rotting corpse, while another body sits at the far corner behind a broken lantern. Although horrified, the old servant approaches his young master. And he discovers Shinojo is dead. He takes a closer look and sees a large grin on the young master's face, stretching from ear to ear. He has never seen anyone, no matter how rich, famous, or powerful, in all the years of his life, dies with such genuine joy, fulfillment, and happiness. So, has your partner promised to love you forever? Have you made the same promise to your partner? And are you truly prepared to have that promise fulfilled, even beyond death? Thank you for joining us. This is Dorian. Until next time.